Google Analytics Universal will be stopped next year, 2023. So if you watch this video in 2023 and it's May, you just have basically 1 month left. Most of the people watch it now in 2020, March 2020. And so the initial reaction would be like, okay, well, then we have to switch to the new version, which is Google Analytics 4. And I can really imagine in a lot of cases this might be the right answer to this, because you might have stuff within Google Analytics which is really so important for you. So be it marketing attribution, be it some kind of e-commerce reporting, that you really need this. But for, I would say, at least 50% of the setups that I know, it's definitely worth to check out the alternatives. And how to do this, I will show in a video. Hey, so welcome back. This is basically like a short wrap up of a live webinar that I did. And so there's also like the live webinar here in the YouTube channel. So if you want to see the full 45-minute version, so this is basically now covering, let's say I'm trying to get it down to 10 to 15 minutes to get you an idea. So we do this in a more high level if you want to have a deeper insight. So you should check the other video, which is also like linked in the description. And so here we go. So how to approach that? Let me start here. So I would say the major part, which is most important for you, is like you have to define for which kind of use cases you want to use the data. So what kind of questions you want to answer with data, and what kind of decisions are you making where you use data. And this is basically an exercise that you should do within your company. So covering it with all the teams that at the moment work with data, or all the teams that maybe like to work with data but don't work with data yet because their use cases haven't been covered yet. And so sit down and collect all the different kind of questions they want to get an answer to. And so here are some examples of these different kind of questions. And so I will, so you will find the link to this Miro board also like in the description, so you can see it, and you can also copy it and use it in your company as well. And so invest time into this. This is something, it does not really come natural. So sit down with different kind of people, maybe mix groups, because the interesting thing is when product is saying, oh, actually we want to analyze this, then marketing thinks, oh, this is interesting, maybe we can do this. And so really try to get different kind of people in different kind of mixtures, so not just talk to the marketing team, then talk to the product team. So mix it up, make it make it as different as possible, and try to get the people really talking and envisioning, and also always set the stage in that way that they should just bring out, even like in an ideal world, what they could get some data for, even when it sounds absurd. So but it gives you the direction of the problems they have. And so you collect what they do at the moment, which is then pretty easy, because just like letting them tell how they use the data. So or look into their reports, what they're using at the moment, and make a list of that. And then this is more like the part that I'm just mentioning, is like discuss with them what kind of stuff they want to do in the future, or what is missing at the moment. So really get at least like a backlog of stuff where they're at the moment struggling with their kind of data setup and what they want to do more, and figuring out if this is something that can be solved by a new tool or not. I can already tell you data quality cannot be solved by a new tool. This is an implementation problem. So don't expect, if you have some problems with some data quality, that it goes away once you implement a new one. Usually it doesn't. So once you have that, you can then try to break it down into features and requirements. And this might be something that it's in the first place is not so easy, but the more you do it and the more you try to do it, the better it gets. And so you take one requirement. So for example, this is like, I want to analyze the campaigns that bring us leads. And so the requirements to do this would be like, you have to have some kind of way to identify campaigns. So in that case, campaign parameters. And you might also look into cookieless tracking, because like if you really want to know all the campaigns that are contributing to a lead, then with consent you usually get 50% of the data, but since you are just looking into this specific thing, it can make sense to implement something like cookieless tracking, because then you get all the data, but just for this specific kind of use case, so not for all use cases. And then another one like this, okay, I want to analyze how people are dropping off through a sign-up, through different kind of sign-up steps. And so in that case, for example, a funnel analysis is essential for you. And since we are talking about new users versus returning ones, which, okay, in a sign-up you mostly have new users, but sometimes also returning ones, you need some kind to at least build some segments. And you also should be able to send some events to create this kind of funnel. And then maybe the last part, like, okay, you want to see how a new product feature is basically performing when you have released it. And so you should have a way to track a feature so that you can tell the analytics system, hey, this is actually a new feature. And so there was a version before and there's a new version. So maybe you do feature flagging. So you roll out the new version just to 10, 20% of the people. And so then you have to make sure that this can be covered by the analytics system as well. And so, of course, like for this use case, for example, you need already really advanced segmentation, because in the end you want to see, okay, all the people that are using the new version then have used, let's say, the new event one time, or maybe then you create another segment of people using the new feature at least 5 times, and then you want to see these different kind of segments performing against a specific conversion goal. Sounds already complicated, is also complicated, and definitely requires an analytics system that is capable of creating these kind of granular segmentations. Usually you look into product analytics in this place, and they all offer these kind of, let's say, deep and very specific segmentations. So once you have that, you then basically take every kind of requirement and put them in a list. And so, I mean, I like to do this in Miro, so this is a small version of it, so usually I have a really huge version of it, and I then basically have an area for each kind of requirement, and then I collect everything I find in documentations, in videos, in people reporting about it. I even looked sometimes into if there are, G2 reviews are usually useless, because everyone knows they get bored, don't go into it, but sometimes when people, you can often see when people really write proper reviews, and at least you can look for some kind of stuff they are saying that could be interesting. So when they say, oh, funnel analysis is awesome in this tool, or they say, oh, the funnel analysis is so limited. And so you try to collect as much as you can about these kind of feature, because you always have a little bit of the problem that, especially if you don't work with this every day, that you don't really know in detail how these different kind of features look like in these tools, because you haven't tried them out. Another thing that you can also do is, like, if you have some features which are really important in your setup, so for example funnel analysis, you know from the product team they do everything with this, or they want to do everything with this, and so it's really important for them, then maybe reach out and find other people who are already using GA4 or already using Amplitude, and ask them, for example, okay, do you use the funnel feature? Yes. Okay, are you happy? Is something missing? And by that, talking to other people, you usually get quite good idea if this feature really provided you what you need for this. And then also make sure, beside the features that you need, that you also check some other requirements. And so I have something like, for EU people, of course, it's important to know if there is an EU server location possible. I mean, there are some movements that this might change again, but right now I would say this is definitely something you should check. Then check the documentation. So documentation for you using the tool, but also like for the developers. Honestly, a good documentation can help you a lot along the way. Also, like, look where you can get tutorials and resources. And so, like, for Google Analytics, you will find plenty of stuff around there. There are people dedicating full blocks only for Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager. And so you will find a lot of stuff. For other tools, that might be difficult and more different. Especially when you look into open source tools, check for communities. If the open source tool has a community, because how active is it? I mean, when the last post is from 2018, it doesn't really help you. So if it's an active community, this can be a huge difference for you, because, like, if you use an open source tool, there will be not someone on the other end where you can write an email. Actually, you cannot do this with Google Analytics 2 unless you have a 360 setup and so on. Then you have basically an account manager, but in the free version, there's no one answering your question too. So, but there are plenty of tutorials, so this can help you. And don't underestimate easy to use. So if you're really good and familiar with analytics tools, get someone to test this who is using analytics tools 3 times a year, and let them try it out if they can really understand this, because this is important. In the end, you want to introduce a tool that it's not excluding people because it's so hard to use. You want to have something that it's including people because it's so easy to use. So this is important, and don't underestimate fast. So there are still tools around there when you basically filter stuff and create a segment, or I don't know, a specific time range, that it runs for ages until you get, and ages I mean, okay, of course not 30 minutes or 40 minutes, but I mean, I can tell you 2 minutes is already, if you work with something and you really want to get results and want to move forward, 2 minutes is already a really blocker. And so make sure that it's really fast. And so in the end, it might be really hard to decide. So if it's really hard, so it definitely helps if you have a good tag manager system setup, and so you use some data layers, so you have already some defined triggers where you actually at the moment sending stuff to Google Analytics Universal, for example. Then take the systems that you want to test, create free trials, and then hook up that you at least send 4 or 5 of your major events also into this system. So introduce them, set up, test it out, and test out and really work with the stuff. So you really have to get a feeling how you can work on a daily basis with these kind of things. Same goes for Segment and Rudderstack. If you already use these systems, they are really easy to send the data to other destinations as well. So usually it's just like putting in some ID, clicking send, and here you go. And so this can really help you to make the final decision for a specific kind of tool. And so just to get you get an idea, and I won't go through all of them. So I did it in the live session. I did it. And so if you really want to have more details about what kind of alternatives could be possible for you, then you can definitely look into this here. And so this gives you an idea. So I won't go through it. So I just give you the different kind of categories and what they mean. And so all-purpose analytics are basically like everything is happening in one tool. So the tracking goes directly into this tool. So they do all the transformation, data modeling, aggregation. And in the end, you have plenty of different reports that you can then analyze the data. So the 2 most important ones are Google and Adobe Analytics, who basically created this category in the first place. And then we have the category of product analytics. And product analytics is quite similar to these in the all-purpose analytics as well, because they also take care of the tracking. Now the event model is also like the same. This was different with GA4 or with the old GA concerning this, but this is already pretty close to what, for example, Amplitude Mixpanel are doing. The major difference here is like you get this specific kind of report. So what I just mentioned. So if you really dive deep into segmentation, these tools provide this. So they provide really a lot of possibilities to create very, very, very specific segments that you usually cannot create in GA4, at least not in the front end. And so these are really built for these deep analysis, and also like they go more into cohorts. They usually have better funnel reports. They have very good retention reports. And so if these kind of things are really important, you should definitely look into the product analytics category. Customer data infrastructure. They usually are just tools who collecting different kind of events from different kind of sources. So it can be from your front end, but also from your server side, or also like from third-party services. And then you send them into these tools, and these tools then send it off to other destinations. So this can be your data warehouse, but it's often like that. For example, we do really setups where Segment is sending data into Amplitude, and sometimes even like into 2 tools, so like also like GA. And so you have the same data collected in Segment and sent off to different kind of tools because you need it for different kind of analysis. In some ways, by the way, all these in light green are all offer open source versions, so that's the difference. And so, for example, Snowplow was for a long time mostly like a data collection or tracking service. So you basically can send data from different kind of places into the Snowplow pipeline, and then it ends up into your data warehouse or into your database. They are now also developing a little bit more possibilities that you can basically use it as a customer data layer as well, like Segment in the end, that you can immediately send out the track data into tools, for example, like Amplitude. And then you have the new category, which I call it simple analytics or privacy-aware analytics. So these are usually stripped-down version of Google Analytics. So they don't offer the full-fledged feature stuff that you see from here, and they're really great if you just need some tracking for your blog, or you just want to know what's happened on your website. So which kind of pages people look into it, and maybe you have 2 or 3 events that you need to track. Maybe if they sign up for a newsletter. If this is really basically your use case for analytics, and you also want something where you don't set cookies, so you basically don't potentially need a consent, then you can definitely look into these because they offer a very, very simple setup. They are very easy to use, so ease of use is in this tools basically baked in. But of course, like, they have their limitations. So I'm not really sure if they're offering segmentation, which is, for example, a core feature for me. But if all this stuff is not so important for you, definitely check them out. So you don't need the full-blown stuff if you can solve your stuff with this. This is why I said it's really important that you check your requirements first before you look into this. And so this is still a lot of to digest and a lot of to figure out. And I mean, and it requires some on the one hand, either some really deep research, or on the other hand, some knowledge about this different kind of stuff. And so what I can offer you, and this is not, I mean, if you watch this video a little bit later, so I'm offering this usually all the time, is basically like, you can create at least like a list of all the different kind of questions that you want to answer with data, and then you can send these questions to me, or you put them on the board like this one. So you make a copy of this and you put your stuff on the board already, and just send it to me. And so then I come back with you with some kind of ideas what you can do with your kind of setup. So if it really makes sense to go for Google Analytics 4, or if you maybe, I say, okay, you don't really have so hard data use cases at the moment, so maybe you just start with Plausible or Fathom Analytics and use these kind of tools. And so I try to, so I don't know how much volume this will generate, so I don't know how quick it will go, but I definitely want to try to give you an idea how you can basically decide for an analytics tool. And so this, I hope, helps you a little bit to decide which kind of analytics tool you should use. If you say, okay, I'm not really sure and I want to really go deep and I don't have time for research or anything, I mean, this is what Deep Sky Data does. So we basically sit down with you in a workshop, 2 hours, collect all the different kind of data requirements that you have, so you don't have to do this. I mean, the more you already have, the better, but we basically get it out of you, and then we can make a proposal of different kind of options. So we never say, okay, this is the perfect option for you, because it doesn't exist, but we can give you different kind of option and can give you the parameters on which you can decide which kind of setup is best for you. So I hope this helps a little bit to make a decision if you should go for Google Analytics 4. And if not, as said, so let me know, write in the comments if you have some kind of questions, and yeah, see you next time.